Okay, let's get straight into the Chelsea versus Leeds preview because only a few days after Arsenal and we're already getting ready for another one. A bit of an awkward one. 8:15 Wednesday night kickoff. You've got no Casado because of the red card, of course. Players like Reece who are going to be missing now because, again, you need to be careful with them and rest them. Does Cucurella get a rest? Because, again, he's had two tough jobs against Yamal, where he was brilliant. And then against Saka, where I thought he did well, but Saka obviously was very good in that game as well, in phases, especially for the Arsenal goal. Wesley Fofana is another one. I can't see him playing again. He's just played back-to-backs, so he's one that I do not see playing this game. So, of the starting team against Arsenal, how many changes are we going to make, and what do Leeds do differently? Because they've been a bit of an awkward team this season. Maresca said it himself in his presser. They've played in both a back four and they shifted to a back five for the first time this season in their game against City. They were 2-0 down, shifted to the back five, got back in the game 2-2, and then lost the game 3-2. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar, especially because of the way that they did that. So let's get into talking about how Leeds could set up against us, how Maresca could sort of tackle that, and a few of the sort of tactical pieces from that game. If we just start by going through a couple of screenshots that I've took, I rewatched the entire City versus Leeds game last night. I've only got a few pictures from the game, but I was sat there taking notes about how the game shifted between the two halves when they changed their shape because I was quite intrigued by it. Now, in this first half, it was very much sort of that 4-4-2 from Leeds. You got the 4-4-2, sort of like this. Very narrow four at the back because a lot of the time these wingers were dropping all the way in to cover, and it did look almost like a 6-3-1 at times. And they were looking to double up in those wide areas and really stop City. Again, you've got their fullbacks playing out wide as City have done all season, or at least for a lot of this season with Pep's new sort of tactical innovations. And from that, they were looking to sort of stop the wide areas and stop these sort of like inside number 8s getting on the ball in those sort of underlapping channels. But they were struggling to put enough pressure on the ball, I think, because of that, because they were so passive in wide areas. And when you've got the likes of Doku, who's sort of coming inside, you've got Foden, you've got Bernardo Silva, they're struggling to apply enough pressure on the ball. And I think this picture here shows, again, look how narrow that back four is. And this is where the goal comes from. Because they're so narrow, that switch is on quite easily to Nunez, who's then able to get the ball. And again, in this area here, you've essentially got a 2v2 because this player is essentially he's a help defender, but he's also aware of Foden's position. And it means that Nunez is able to make that run off the shoulder. Bernardo Silva finds a perfectly weighted pass. Nunez gets on the ball and they're 1-0 up after about a minute played. So that is something that I think can be exploited, especially if they're doubling up in this area with their fullback and their winger in this game. So we'll speak about how I think Chelsea could sort of use their wide sort of combinations to get into these areas as often as possible and sort of benefit from that. This shows, again, both those wingers deep on the ball, especially trying to stop those switches of play. And then, again, like I say, there's lots of bodies in the middle for Manchester City. If we just sort of go like this. Lots of bodies in the middle, and Leeds aren't able to get enough pressure on the ball because they are sitting off in that sort of back six. But they're also willing to sit in a bit of a mid-block, Leeds. It wasn't so deep at all times, even when they were in sort of this 6-3-1 shape. There was space in behind. I think a lot of it was referenced on Haaland's positioning, and that was sort of how high the line would stay. So I do think that there is opportunity to exploit and sort of switch between the two with playing a few balls in behind that back line as they try to step, but also then sort of switching it up and trying to drive into those areas yourself to exploit the space in between those two lines of engagement that we always speak about, the defensive line and the midfield line. And this is where it changed because, like I said, they did change systems and they did go for two up front. And this is something that worries me slightly because they had Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Nemecha, two big strikers who are good in the air and they can battle their defender, which sounds, and many of you listening to this now will be slightly worried of me saying that, because that sounds like something that we would struggle with. Now, in this game, as part of that, they then sort of moved on their fullbacks into wing-back positions, went to a back three, had a very energetic midfield three, and it looks something like this. Okay. So you notice the Chelsea players have changed a bit as well here, because this is something that I think we could see. Now, I'm not 100% sure how many changes we will look to make, but you can see the back five of Leeds, the two strikers, and then what you've got is Tanaka, Ampadu, and Gruev, who are very sort of combative and willing to put themselves around in the midfield. So what they were able to do is get a lot more pressure in that central area, whilst leaving the fullbacks or the wing backs 1v1 with the wide player. And then it also allows these wide centre backs to jump out and be a little bit more aggressive. Rodon, especially in that second half, was much more jumpy. He was sort of very front footed, trying to defend Doku and make sure Doku wasn't able to receive in turn. So Rodon was one that was stepping out a lot. So that's someone that I'd be keeping an eye on, because as we've seen with our left-sided dynamics at times when we play against these back fives, how we're able to shift them in how Fernandez moves deeper, drags the player away, and then allows a runner in behind someone like Cucurella. But as you can see here, I've got it as Hato. So let's really quickly sort of speak about what I've got in terms of the Chelsea lineup. I have gone for Delap up front. Cole, I think, will come on, but I do still think that maybe we see a midfield three, essentially of these three. Pedro more of a 10, but playing on that sort of right side. Fernandez is sort of the double pivot, but being on that left side. And then Andre Santos as that sort of single sort of number 6. So that's the midfield options I've gone for. Fullback options, I think that it's going to be Gusto and Hato. Now, it could be Cucurella, but like I said, I think he had a really tough week. I think it could be a game where you start Hato and then maybe bring Cucurella on if we're struggling. And then the centre-back pairing is interesting. I think Badiashile will start this game. Achimpong, I think that's more of a hopeful sort of what I would like to see. But like I say, with the two strikers of Leeds, I wouldn't be surprised if they go for Tosin or even Chalobah again in this sort of centre-back position. So this could be a few different players, I think, in this centre-back position. I think I'd be quite confident that Badiashile does start, though, to give him some minutes in the tank. And then on the wings, I've gone for Gittins and Esteval. Again, this could be anything. Like, Esteval, he came off at half-time, so is he ready to go again in this game? Again, I think that the wide combinations are something we need to speak about, and that's something I would look to sort of hone in on, in which case I think these two could be a good pairing for this game. So that's where my thinking is. Let me know what lineups you would like to see, if you'd be happy with this lineup, if there's any changes you would make. But let's now switch it on to, if Leeds do go in that back four that we just spoke about at the beginning, how we can sort of move our way through using these wide areas. And this is also true with the back five. But the reason I've gone for this formation is because I'd like to see a bit more of sort of a 2-3 build-up against Leeds, especially if they are pressing in the back four. Because what it allows for is these wide triangles to be formed, where you've got both Gusto and Hato who are both willing to make that underlapping run. And we spoke about this space being somewhere you can target against this Leeds side, especially because of how they look to double up in wide areas with their winger and their fullback. Now, that's not what I meant to do. If we go like that again. What we have here, in my opinion, is 3 very well balanced trios, because what you can have is Esteval and Gittins, who are both willing to make that run in behind themselves, but they're also willing to carry the ball themselves and hold it, so they might drop off a little bit here to receive the ball. What that then gives you the opportunity of is, can you find the ball inside to your number 10, your creative number 10, with João Pedro and Fernandez? Can they make the run into there so that you can attack inside? Can you take the marker away so that they can get something through the middle or find a ball into the box? And then, like I just said, can you also then provide a late runner, someone like Hato, whilst Fernandez is sort of taking up, say Bogle's gone out, James is sort of with Hato, Fernandez is either being covered by Ampadu, sort of more centrally, or Rodon sort of shuffled over to sort of mark this space here. Can Hato make that late run off the shoulder of James or, again, Gusto on Nonto? Because Gusto does this really, really well. To arrive in this space, to then put the ball and flash that ball across the box where you have the likes of Delap, Fernandez, Pedro, Esteval, all arriving, and maybe even Gusto on the edge of the box, all arriving in the box. And then again, from the other side, if Gusto arrives here to put that ball into the box, you have Pedro, Delap, you have Fernandez, you have Hato maybe, you have Gittins. Like, you have all of these players attacking that back post. Now, could it be Garnacho instead of Gittins? Sure. Could it be Neto? I think Neto will get a rest. So I think it will be two of Gittins, Garnacho, and Esteval. And then again, I think Cole will start from the bench and come on in this sort of Pedro position, maybe get half an hour. But again, we don't know. Maybe he starts and gets 45 minutes. Maybe he just plays the first 45 and then gets subbed off. So it all depends how Maresca looks to manage the minutes of someone like Cole as he comes back. But I really want to hear what you guys have to say about this game. I think it's an awkward one. I think that the key performers in this game, Andre has to be at his best level. And I think that he has been showing that as of late. I think that the wingers, like I said, could be key. And I would really like to see this wing pairing. And then I'm really interested to see this fullback pairing as well, especially with the wingers, like I say, to arrive in those spaces between the lines. So let me know your thoughts. Please keep hitting the subscribe button, hitting the like button, hype, comment, all that good stuff, because we're trying so hard to hit 10K. We've only got a month left and we're a little way away. So we're just going to keep grinding and see how well we can do in this next sort of month. And then we'll reassess for the new year and see what we can push for then. Got some exciting things on the way, so keep your eyes peeled. And I'll see you guys in the next video.